Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop and welcome back to my series on building the Serpentine chest of drawers. Last time we finished up the casework, we got the Serpentine profile cut into the front and we added the bead detail which frames out all the drawer openings. This time we're going to make these Serpentine drawers complete with angled dovetailed joinery. So that should be pretty fun. Again, I want to say a big thank you to Triton Tools for sponsoring this series and continue to support the channel as I have over the last several years. For now, let's jump back and look at some wood and cut up some slabs. Okay, so I just laid out my 4 drawer fronts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So a few things to think about with these particular drawer fronts. It's one of the more unique and interesting considerations with these fronts is the fact that we're going to be cutting, a curve into here. So what's going on the face right here in the low spot is not what's going to be in the actual finished piece. So we want to pay attention to what's going on the underside as well. So I have kind of flipped things around a little bit to make sure that the back side is going to be kind of what I want. I'm trying to avoid larger defects, but I want to incorporate some figure as well. I am avoiding sapwood. That's not really a look I'm going for in this piece. So I have my sap lines here kind of marked out so I can follow them. And when it comes to sap, you can see I'm laying out on the narrow side of the board or the sappier side or towards the outside of the log, because if we come straight down, we're going to go into more hardwood. So versus laying the other way, if you come down from where you think the edge of the sapwood is, you'll have sapwood in the back side of the board. So laying it out this way allows you to make sure that eliminating sapwood on this face eliminates sapwood completely. So one thing with these is they are fairly straight grained, so it's going to be a more uniform, cleaner look to the front facade of the drawer fronts. However, I do have some little hints of figure here and there. So I got a little bit of crotch figure here on the corner of number 3, and this knot here should produce some more kind of figure and things as we go down into the actual wood that's there. Similarly over here, got a little bit of figure here for drawer front number 4, but for the most part, fairly straight. The slab here is towards the center, so that one's mostly quarter sawn, and this one is kind of plain sawn-ish. You can see we have some cathedrals down here towards the bottom. So it leaves me with, from the slabs I picked out, this one big one here. I'm going to chop these things up and get them rough milled. Nice thing about this is as far as rough milling goes, I'm going to be conservative. If I don't fully clean up the faces, it's not really a huge deal because they're going to get sawn anyway. So the faces that we see at this stage are not the faces that we're going to see in the final piece. Any kind of rough sawn mill marks will end up being removed when we do the sawing of the curves. But we want to have a decent starting point so things are somewhat uniform and squared up and flat. So as I'm breaking down this material, I just want to say a big thank you to Triton Tools for continuing to sponsor the channel. If you aren't aware, they've been a sponsor for 6 years now, and we produce actually a lot of content over on their channel. So I will leave you a link to their YouTube channel. There are several videos I've done over there with some quick tips as well as actual full projects and trips where I've gone places to build things. Now, one of my favorite videos over there happens to be the first one we ever shot together, which is a video where I walk around and we look at trees and take a look at how they're growing and how you can look at a tree and kind of see or envision what the figure is going to be like inside of that tree if it was sawn into lumber. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you can also follow their pages. One of the great things about their social media pages, which I really appreciate, is the fact that every week they share projects that other people in the community are working on. So if you want to see what other people are up to, Triton is a great page to follow. You can find them over there at Triton_tools. And thank you, Triton, once again. So there are the drawer fronts all rough milled. I'm going to let these sit for a few days. It's Friday, so I'll let these sit until at least Monday and just see what they're going to do, if they're going to want to move around a lot. It's kind of a weird situation because we're going to be sawing a curve into the thickness of these things. So, it doesn't need to be super flat, but it needs to stay, or maintain the curve that gets cut in there. Otherwise, it's going to look a little off. The beading will help with that, but you don't want these things to warp a lot. Once you have that curve in there, you want them to stay in that final shape. So I want to get a good feeling of, are these going to have stress in them and want to move around after those curves are cut? So if I leave them here to sit for a few days, let them acclimate. If they move a lot, then I'll be worried a little more and I'll probably grab a replacement part. But otherwise, It's just more of a mental thing to make sure I feel good about moving forward with these guys. So with that, I think I will also just kind of break down the drawer box material. So I have that as well. So I'm gonna go through my scrap pile. Like this guy looks like a good side for that drawer there. I'll work through the scrap pile I already have from cutting the pieces for the case top and bottom. And then I'll go to the new stock and start pulling material from that. That way, again, that stuff can sit for a few days while the drawer fronts are sitting. And then I'll have drawer fronts which have rested and drawer, sides and backs that have rested as well. So I can do the curves on the drawer fronts and then get into actually the joining some complete drawers together next week. Okay, these have been sitting around for a while and they haven't really moved. Still nice and flat. So I think all I'm going to do now is just give them a few skim passes through the planer just to remove a little bit more of the low spots. I don't want to go too crazy with this because I'd rather have too much material that I can then shape away than, not have enough. So a few passes through the planer and then we'll start actually fitting them to the case, or at least getting them roughly fitted to the case. So I'll go through and rip them to width and then I'll start working on cutting them down to length. As always with the inset drawers, I'll go ahead and find the angle that matches perfectly for the case. That's probably not exactly square. And once I have one end cut to that correct angle, I can work on the other end. Process there is just a little bit different. We'll find the angle first, and then we'll cut it to that perfect length using that angle. And all I do to make these adjustments is just shim the fence, and I just keep track of where I'm putting my shims and how many shims I have so I can repeat those cuts. That way the drawer front will fit perfectly to the opening. It'll make fitting the drawer a lot easier. Okay, this is starting to get real. So I have the template here from the bottom of the case. So this is basically the case that is not the bead, so the area behind the bead. And I'm going to go ahead and use this as my layout tool to get the curves on here. Now I've already kind of messed around with the layout for this, so I know that the curve is going to be 5/8 of an inch from the front edge, or right around there. And on my template I have some layout lines which indicate the boundary of the drawer opening. And I can mark out the actual curvature on the drawer. Again, the nice thing about this is that bead detail on the front of the case is going to mask any imperfections in the curvature here, so if things aren't super perfect, not really going to be all that noticeable, which is nice. It's a nice bonus. I don't have to be super precise here, so I'm not really worried about getting these drawer fronts like flush trimmed to this template, which you could do with a big enough router bit or a shaper bit or something like that. Doesn't really matter in this case because you have that kind of built-in error distraction kind of thing. So with the lines drawn out, just a simple matter of going through the bandsaw, taking my time, and cutting along the line to produce the curvature for the front face of the drawer. Okay, so now we have a little bit of cleanup work to do to finalize this curve and just ferret out, make it look nice and pretty. So I did get pretty close to the line with the bandsaw, so I don't have a whole lot of cleanup work to actually do. We're mostly just cleaning up the saw marks, ferring things out, and then blending into this flat area to get rid of it. So I'm going to use the compass plane for this. This plane is not something that gets used super often, but for projects and like little things like this is like the perfect tool for the job. The nice thing with this plane is you can adjust the sole to whatever radius you're trying to go for, and it basically just kind of, it's like on autopilot. You don't have to think about anything. You just feed the plane through and it will make a nice graceful curve. So you can see I'm already down on the high spots. I have several more low spots here to go, but it is very thoughtless. It's just kind of plain, and eventually it'll get there. The only thing to consider with this is that we are going downhill here, and then if we keep going, this will be uphill, so we have to work down from both directions into this valley. But other than that, this is fairly, feels like cheating. There's a bit of a high spot here at this transition. So I'm just going to use just a regular hand plane, go across the grain and knock that bump down. Now I'm just going to blend this convex area just right through here. I got a high spot here and a low spot here. It's going to kind of feather these all together. And now the magic card scraper, to blend this all together, I have a lot of kind of tear out areas towards the bottom of that valley where the compass plane is coming in from both sides, and the card scraper will clean it up pretty quickly. So I have shown before how to do like a full sharpening on a scraper, but in this case, I don't really care about the surface finish, and I don't need the burr to last particularly long. I can just sharpen more often. So this is how I take care of that. So this is a dull edge. You can see, not even making dust, not making anything. So I can grab my burnisher, which just happens to be an old end mill from the Bridgeport, and I can remove any existing burr by just pulling the burnisher along the surface like that, and flipping it over. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Remove the existing burr, and now I can turn a new burr, so I can flip it up and run the burnisher squarely along the top, just like a little bit of pressure. You can see I'm holding it in my hand. One across the top, and then I'll tip in either direction and pull back again. And let's see. So not exactly the most sharp scraper, but it's good enough for this kind of roughing work. So this is getting pretty close. There isn't a perfect curve through here yet, so I will continue working on that, but this scraper is now dull again. So that's the downside of this technique, is that you have to do this more often, but since it's so quick, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, I don't think. See? And we're making shavings again. So this side is good to go. You can see surface finish isn't super great, but for a roughing operation or a kind of rough smoothing operation, definitely good enough. This needs a little finish sanding, and that side's done. I'm going to do the same thing on this side now. So that is pretty good. The at least the initial shaping's there. It just does need to be finish sanded because it is very rough. The the rough burr with the card scraper doesn't really leave that nice of a finish on there, but it is tear out free. It's just kind of rough. So we'll have to do a little more sanding than you would if you had a nice fine burr on here, but it's not that big of a deal. There's not a whole lot of sanding to do here anyway. But next, let's get the inside taken care of as well. So I have a divider here set to the final thickness of the drawer, which is roughly what it is down here at the valley, and I can use this to scribe a cut line parallel to the outside face. So there is the new cut line for the inside of the drawer. So we'll take it to the bandsaw and cut along that curve. I'm gonna make a quick stop at the table saw to make a little flat area to make it easier for the dovetails to seat. Instead of the dovetails following the curve perfectly, it'll be at a actual angle, just like we did for the case. Just a little tiny trick to hopefully make the dovetailing process just a little bit easier, because it's not gonna be, super easy or straightforward. So the inside curve is cut, so now I have a little bit of cleanup work to do. This doesn't need to be anywhere near as perfect as the outside, since it's really never going to be seen, and really the only area where you're going to be able to tell how thick the drawer front is along the top edge. So that area needs to be nice and perfect. It needs to look nice and uniform in thickness. What's going on past that area, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, so I'm going to do a lot of this work with just a sander, just to clean up the rough sawn marks, and maybe just a little bit of card scraping after that. The only thing here is I want to avoid the areas that I cut with the table saw, because that is my little reference area for my dovetails. So that's pretty good for initial cleanup. We'll do a little more sanding later on to finish things up, but it's looking pretty good to keep going. As you can see from this top edge, as long as it looks fairly consistent, that's all I'm really going to see. Bottom edge is not nearly as important. This one's a little chunky in some spots, but it doesn't really matter. Next thing for this is going to be the groove for the bottom. And I'll cut that over here with this slot cutter. This cutter is set up with this bearing so that I'm going to be cutting a 1/4 inch deep groove. This is a 1/4 inch wide cutter, so it's going to cut a 1/4 by 1/4 groove into the drawer front. So now all I have to do is just run this thing on edge through the bit, and that'll give me a nice groove for the drawer bottom that follows the curvature of the entire drawer. Only thing to worry about here is that the bottom side is down. Don't really want the groove on the top. So now we can move on to the drawer sides. That's all going to happen here at the table saw. This is the stock that we prepped earlier. Ended up being down to 9/16. That's just the magic number that I went with. Doesn't make a difference. So the operations here at the table saw will rip the sides to width, and it's going to be just a little bit shorter than the width of the drawer front. And then we can cut the matching groove in the drawer sides for that drawer bottom. And then with that, we can cut the back down to final width. And before heading over to the bench to cut the dovetails, we'll cut the bevel onto the ends of the drawer fronts. And that's going to be the same angle we used earlier for making that little flat area on the drawer front. Okay, let's get started on some tails. This is a little different than the half blinds we did on the, I guess on the case and the bracket feet, because we got this fun little angle here to contend with. So marking here is gonna be a little bit more challenging because you can't just go down here like this. So what I like to do is just do the ends and then connect the two lines on the face with a straight edge. So I'm just making sure I get some good contact here right at the edge so I can transfer that line across onto the face with a knife. Come here and come across the end. This allows me to reference the angle which is already existing on the end of the board. So here's my knife line on the top, here's my knife line on the bottom, and now I can just connect them with the straight edge. There's that line. Same thing over here. There's the scribe lines. A little more involved than usual. And now to lay out the tails, the only big thing as always with the drawers is to make sure that groove ends up inside of that first tail. So I'm going to start by laying out the ends of the first tails. And I'm thinking I want to put, let's say 3 tails into this board. And I'm going to do it, I guess, evenly spaced. So I'm going to use my dividers, get those set to put 3 tails in here. So I'll go here as 1. So 1 segment. And then here would be 2. And then I can just eyeball to the left and right the amount that I want from my pin. So we'll go like that maybe. Do the same thing down here. Kind of making that entry point about 1/8 of an inch. That's just a look that I like. So there is my evenly spaced set of 3 dovetails. Okay, now I'm gonna start cutting, and as always, the most important thing on the tails is the line across the top. You want this to stay square. What the angle coming down actually ends up at doesn't really matter. If this doesn't follow this line perfectly, doesn't matter as much. The squareness of the cut to the face is what matters here on the tail board. So let's take my time and follow my lines and get down to the scribe lines. There's your first cut. Now, I'm certainly no expert at hand sawing, but my biggest tip is just don't force the saw. You should not be pushing down on the saw. The weight of the saw should be all it needs to get through all this wood. So as I'm sawing, I'm just focusing on pushing the saw forward. I'm not really applying any downward pressure onto the saw. So there's our tails all sawn out, and now it's just like most anything, removing all the waste from between the tails to make room for all the pins. Okay, now on to the more challenging part of this. First thing we're going to need is the length of the tails. So this marking gauge is set from before when I actually laid out those tails. So just like normal. That's a normal thing, just like a square dovetail. And then I'll lay in the depth. I have my little alignment block here. That's going to allow me to use the grooves to help align my workpieces. I can set that thing in here like that, and now it's to set how far into the drawer front the tailboard actually goes. Just like any other dovetail joint, I have the tail sitting here on the line and everything looks good, so I can go around and trace all these tails onto the drawer front. And I'll just transfer these down the face like usual. Now to cut the actual sockets, that process is going to be very similar to any other half blind that I normally do. The only difference here is like kind of mentally wrapping our minds around what's going on inside of here. So the back wall here is going to be parallel to this face, so it's not necessarily square to this face, so it's at a little bit of an angle. It's going to slope towards the front, and then the bottom area here is going to slope kind of up a little bit. So it's some weird geometry to think about at first, but once you kind of wrap your mind around it, it's not, I don't know, it's not too bad. So I'm going to head over to the drill press and remove the bulk of the waste. I will use the offcut from cutting the curve in it to get the drill press, square to where it needs to be. So essentially square to the little flat area we cut at the table saw, and then remove the bulk of the waste that way. Back over to the bench, we'll use the offcut again to support the workpiece, chop away the majority of the waste, just like I would do with a normal square dovetail joint, and then we can go up into the vise and then pare back the pin walls to establish that nice clean socket, and hopefully the dovetail will fit in there. So there is the sockets all ready to go, and looks like this should fit down in here. One thing I'm going to do that I don't normally do, because I know things in here are not as perfect as they would be if this was a square dovetail joint, is I'm going to start undercutting and relieving material on the tailboard. So first I'm going to do the end grain. So I'm going to go to the table saw, tip the blade further, and just chop off essentially the bottom part of the tail. and the back of the bench, I will round over or knock off all the corners and all the edges just to make sure that if there's any material that's not perfect down the bottom of the sockets, that the tailboard is actually going to fully seat and not get hung up on something. There, now there shouldn't be any material here to get in the way anywhere, and we can see where this is going to go. So it's feeling a little tight, and right here you can see this kind of darkened area here on the side of the pin. Those are crushed fibers, so that is where the tails are rubbing. So I'm just going to give this a quick shave. And then we try it again. A little tight still. So now we can add the back to the drawer, and this is always kind of nice because it's a lot faster, because these through dovetails compared to the half blinds in the front of, even a square drawer is much faster. You can just bang these things together. So the drawer back is cut to be a little bit shorter than the width of the drawer opening, so that we end up with a little bit of taper on the drawer. It's gonna make it operate a little bit easier as it goes in and out of the opening. So I'm gonna go and get to going on cutting these pins. I cut these ones pins first because that's the way I like to do drawers. You can cut dovetails either way. We're laying out from the back of the drawer, so this will be the face you will not see when you open the drawer. The inside face is on the inside of the bench. And I'm just going to draw my pin layout just randomly, which is kind of nice because this drawer back will only go back together in one orientation. So there are my pins, and I can just cut them real quick. Again, angle doesn't matter, but plumbness does. So as long as I'm following this line here on the face down, it doesn't really matter what angle I end up cutting this thing to. Okay. Spin it around, do the same thing. hop over to the bandsaw and the table saw to just remove pretty much all his waste. It goes pretty quickly. So normally on a square type drawer, not a crazy weird serpentine drawer, I'll put the sides and the front together and use that as a clamping jig to do this transferring, but it is a little bit awkward with the serpentine front to get everything lined up. So I find it's just easy enough to stand this thing up on here and transfer the pin locations onto the tail board. That's it. Easy peasy. And we'll just finish the layout. And then we can saw the tails and clean up the waste. Again, for this, I'm going to use the power saws to help clean things up. Okay, let's see how that went. It is it is almost disgusting how much more streamlined that process is than the half blinds. Okay. That side's a little tighter. Okay. There's a Kirby drawer. Okie dokie. With all this drawer construction complete, now I can do the glue up and start getting them fit to their openings. So at this point, all the internal surfaces have been surface prepped. I also gave the outside of the drawer front a nice surface prep. It's gonna be a little bit easier, when they're all separate like this. And the outside will get surface prepped after we flush up all the parts, after everything is glued together. So I'm gonna get some glue onto my dovetails. So now with all the joints fully seated, we can bring this thing over to the case. I'll only use the case as a clamping device to hold this thing in alignment as the glue sets. So drawer all the way in. Should still be pretty tight. And then we can adjust the racking angle on it to make sure that the front ends up nice and parallel to the front of the case. So essentially how it looks now is how it will look when the drawer is fully closed when we're done with assembly. So I'm just checking to make sure it's protruding the same amount past the bead that I want, so it's nice and even, and then we can just leave it alone. So the glue is set on this drawer now, and it is time to get this thing fit to the opening so it actually operates nice and smoothly and correctly. So from the glue up, we know it gets a little tight towards the end, so we know we have to remove some material on here, but we also have to flush up the joinery. So the nice thing about this process is I'm going to go ahead and flush up that joinery with the sander, and then that should, in theory, get it pretty darn close to perfect right away, which is nice. So let's see how this does. It's a little tight still, but not too bad. You see it goes into the opening, and it's just a little bit tight, but it is fitting, and it's a lot better than it was before. I still have, uneven gaps around the four sides, but that's as far as I'll take this drawer. I'm gonna run through and do the other three, and then when they're all kind of at the stage, then I'll come back and set all the gaps. That way they all end up being the same. All right, after a fair amount of back and forth and playing around, I have my gaps set and my fit's looking pretty good. At this point, we don't need the drawers to slide super nicely because the inside isn't waxed yet anyway. We just want to make sure that they move freely and they don't bind. So this one's moving nicely. There's a little bit of resistance as it goes in and out, which will be removed with the wax when it gets applied, but that's a good fit. Put that in all the way. So I don't necessarily have my gaps set uniformly. That's not the look that I go for. I tend to have a tighter gap on the sides than on the top and bottom. The top and bottom are just your expansion gaps, and the sides, I just tend to have a tighter look on those versus a even larger gap around the entire perimeter of the drawer. So if this was even, the drawer sides would have a very in my opinion, a very large gap on the sides, but I like to have a fairly tighter feel there. One thing you can do as a little bit of a little fudge factor, I guess, is if you are having problems getting your gaps to be consistent, they don't actually need to be 100% consistent. So right now, all of my drawers are still square. I haven't broken the corners on any of them. So what you can do is you can break the corners a little bit differently depending on where you are on the drawer and introduce a little bit of a gap that way too. Instead of having the full like depth of the drawer with that gap, just having a slight gap reveal along the front where the corner is broken, that can make it appear like the gaps are consistent, because those gaps aren't really, they're there functionally to a certain extent, but they are more visual than anything else. So as long as they look kind of how you want them to look and they're not actually how they're supposed to look, it doesn't really matter. So these are done. That was a lot of work. So that takes care of the drawers, and I will tell you what, making serpentine drawers with angled dovetails, significantly more work than making a flat front drawer by like a long shot. Very cool, very rewarding, but very different. So again, if you like a little more in-depth instructional content like this, definitely check out my classes over in the Guild. I have over 150 videos spread out over 9 classes over there. This time we're going to highlight the sideboard. So not only is the shaker sideboard a great introduction to frame and panel shaker style furniture, it's also a great way to hone your skill set with inset doors and drawers. So just like in this project, we spent some time fitting those drawers to the openings so you have nice even reveals all the way around and those drawers operate really evenly and smoothly. You gotta take it a step further when you get to the doors, because not only do you have a door that needs to have a consistent gap around the entirety of it, it needs to have the exact same gap as its pair door right next to it, and those doors need to line up perfectly so they look like they're perfectly in there. So that one is a really good fundamentals class as well. And again, if you want to make your own serpentine chest of drawers like this guy, I do have a full set of plans available over on my website that you can check out as well. So that is going to do it for this one. Next time we're going to put this whole thing onto this base, which again matches that serpentine profile. So we have a nice serpentine transition area, and we have serpentine bracket, OG bracket feet. So that's also another level of things. So thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the serpentine chest of drawers or anything in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy working.